I'm Mike.
We are from livingonadime.com. Mom and I authored Dining on a Dime Cookbook. Want to save $10,000 a year at the grocery store? Look up Tara's tips on page 4. Right here, page 4.
Oh, put it in front of my face.
$10,000 on your grocery bill.
I know, you're trying to cover me up. Hide me.
But today,
You guys are live on
YouTube. Today we are continuing Mom's story. What section is this, Mike? Number what?
14-ish.
Number 14-ish. Penny Pinching Mama. So Mom wrote 500 ways I lived on $500 a month. So this is the tips that she used to go with her story. These are the actual practical things that she did to save money. So just the absolute bare minimum when you just don't have any money. Oh, look at that cute little girl right there.
That's just...
See that?
I'm supposed to comment on that?
So look at this picture here. So I'm sitting on the counter.
I don't know if they can see
you tell
that.
how much I loved you,
I'm
huh?
sitting on the counter with Mom mixing, and there's an open outlet right there. With no cover. Right next to the sink.
Yeah.
No, whatever those protection outlets are.
Well, I even gave you a bath in that sink.
We were doing work, so not going to happen though. All right, so today Mom is telling about when our dog got run over and
that just
our
sounds...
really bad car accident just because we wanted to cheer everyone up.
I know, what a
Wait,
subject
hold
for
on.
the day.
We're already having issues.
We're already having issues.
YouTube is frozen. Hold on.
Okay, so we're trying to figure out our issues on YouTube while they end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So are we on YouTube, Dave?
It says it's still frozen.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tech
Oh,
Man over
Phyllis
there.
says video's not good. It's just because of whatever the problem is that we're trying to solve. So,
Okay.
Can we wait a minute or?
Yeah, doing... Well,
So Mike
YouTube
has
is
no
like-
idea what's going on.
He's throwing up his hands in the background,
We've been having
panicking.
technical issues and we can't get them figured out. But hello, Patty and Longmont.
did you do that?
British Columbia. Wow, Joan. Very snow. We got a little bit of snow and crisp.
What were
Yay, Marianne! I've got your dime.
Hi from Missouri.
talking to you about testing tomorrow was to try to figure out.
Yeah, I know.
Gotta love live TV, isn't that
Okay,
the
well,
truth?
we're just gonna forge on and see
Wait,
if we
is
can
it back,
get this
Dave?
done. And
I think it's back.
Yeah, everyone's like, it's on.
Sorry, everyone.
It's
We're
okay.
having
Oh,
technical
okay.
problems in our company that has the software that we're using doesn't have any idea why. So we're in the middle of tracking it, but we haven't figured out what it is yet.
okay, so I'm Tara from Living on a Dime. This is Mom one more time in case we cut it off. Mom wrote Penny Pinching Mama, 500 ways I lived on $500 a month. And this is her episode 14.
14.
So, go for it.
Go for it. Okay, some people were asking the timeline of this, and Tara was about 14 and a half, something like that. David was 13.
Yeah.
Not
When-
me.
No, not Dave, but David,
My
her
brother.
brother, David. And so this is when these things started happening at this point. The first thing,
Wait, sorry. Did you guys mention a little bit about the 13 episodes we already had? So, because a lot of people might not be familiar with those.
Oh, okay. Well, so if you're wondering, we have 13 more episodes on YouTube you can watch where we tell how Mom has raised my brother and I on $500 a month and the things we went through and stuff like that. So if you want to go to YouTube and check that out, Mike, can you put the link on there maybe?
For sorry, for what?
For YouTube, for our YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Man.
so
Yeah.
this is the continuation
Yeah.
of all those 13.
We ended with the bad blizzard.
Yeah, we were in the bad blizzard. Now it's summer, and we had several things. We kept having things happen. You know, one some small, some large, but it was just something continually, which is kind of like life. But this one
No,
stomach,
it's not. I've talked to people about this, and they say this is not normal.
This is not normal.
No.
Well, Tara and I were, I think you said we were cleaning the porch. I couldn't remember, but we were outside and we had James, and James was our dog that we love so much in the whole wide world. And you're going to hear a lot about us talking about James at different times. And we let him out in the front with us because for years, we'd always just let him out in the front yard, been no issue or anything. We just let him out there to play. We usually kept him in the backyard or in the house, but this day it was nice and we were cleaning the porch and all of a sudden James took off. We lived on kind of it wasn't a super busy street, but it was a busier. It wasn't like a cul-de-sac or a little neighborhood. It was a thoroughfare, main thoroughfare, one-way street. And all of a sudden James took off after a squirrel running across the street. And a car came just about that time, and Tara and I stood there as the car, literally, the tire rolled over him. He bounced up underneath the car and it went on over, and Tara and I just became hysterical. We were screaming. Bloody murder.
We watched the whole thing,
Yeah, we just saw it happen right before our eyes. It was like one of those weird slow motion movies, where you just think, and you there's nothing you can do, And then we took off running, and I don't do real good in emergency situations, and I was just screaming, and I think I told you to go get in the car, maybe. I can't remember what I was screaming at the time, but I think I told Tara to go get in the car, and we were both of us were screaming for David to get out there. And all that I could think of, I just scooped him up off the ground. And it was horrible because I literally thought he was dead. He was just like this limp nothing. And his whole side was just scraped the fur, and everything was scraped off. And it was horrible. And I was carrying him, running across the street then and down our driveway. We had a really long driveway. And you think the dumbest things at these times, because all I could think was our driveway had gravel, really hard gravel on it, and I was barefooted, and I was just running down that gravel. I thought, this isn't hurting my feet. Isn't that weird that you think these things? And all I could think was the gravel wasn't, and I was just running and screaming for David to get outside to get in the car as fast as he could. And I think Tara just gotten in the car, and she got in the back seat, or was in the back seat, and I put James back there with her, and I was going to start the car, and the battery was dead. This was after all, if some of you remember, went from our first experience when I had to go out every morning and jump the battery when it was freezing cold, knee-deep snow, that type of thing. This was a different battery problem, and I jumped in the car because I was going to take him to the emergency vet, and the car wouldn't start. And David at that time, poor David, felt so bad about it later on, but he was in the shower and he heard us screaming, and he didn't know what had happened. Actually, he was Dave's age, that Dave is now, and he had to run out. He grabbed his robe, was all he had, and threw that on. Here he was, this 13-year-old boy was in his robe, running out to the car, trying to find out what was the matter. And the car wouldn't start. I yelled at him. I said, open the hood to the car. And I jumped out and slammed the battery charger on there. Now, you've got to think it was like a syncopated type motion. As I jumped out the side of the car, David opened the hood. I grabbed the battery charger. I slapped those battery cables on like you've never seen anything. Got that thing charged up. I yanked it off, threw that to the charger to the side. David let the hood down, and I was already in the car by the time he got the hood down and was starting to back out. I could have run over him. Now I could have run over my poor son. I was starting to back out while he was trying to jump in the car. The whole thing didn't even take us 3 minutes, if that much. And we were backing down the driveway, and as fast as I could get down that driveway, our saving factor in this whole thing was the emergency vet was like 8 blocks, if that much, from our house. And
it wasn't even. Let's see.
I don't even know if it was 8 blocks.
No, it was like five blocks.
Yeah,
4 or 5 blocks from our house.
It wasn't far.
I think it was only 4 or 5 blocks.
It could have been.
Yeah.
And I went peeling down that side street. Well, it was so weird. My husband has strange times. Dad had strange times of showing up. Because, you know, when David was having his asthma attack, he showed up in the middle of the night at 2 in the morning. He happened to be driving by the house and he showed up. Well, here we were peeling across to the vet and he happened to be coming from the other direction and he saw us flying by. And I laid on the horn and he knew instantly something was really wrong. And we went flying by and I peeled into so he was flipping around then to come follow us. I pulled into the vet place. And remember, they were locked. The door was locked. And we couldn't get the door open. Tar and I were jerking on the door, pounding. And I think David probably said, you have to ring the bell. You have to ring the bell, Mom. Of course, David was always very calm, cool, and collected like my husband was. And so we finally, they came to the door and we had James. And of course, we were crying. It was awful, awful. We got James in there and my husband then came on in and he said, well, let me take David home so he can get some clothes on. So he took David home and they checked James over and all he ended up with was half of his hide, which was a lot, was skinned really bad on one side and a broken leg. And they put his leg in a cast. And for all of you that have pets out there, he said what saved his life, he would have been dead, except because we got him there so quickly, that saved him. He said a lot of animals, their wounds and their injuries don't hurt them, but getting them, they go into shock. So the faster you can get them to the vet, the better their chances are to survive. And he did, and they put a cast on his leg, and he had more people signing that silly, you remember?
What I remember about that was when we got there, we were like, how are we going to pay for this? We had no money.
No.
And so David and I were like, okay, so Mom had, I don't know, it was like $80 or something. It really wasn't a huge amount,
not like
but
it
we
is now.
literally did not have any money to get him. And they were like, nope, he's not going home. We can't send him home until you pay for it. And so Mom was trying to find money, and then David and I were looking in our piggy banks to see what we had, and we were digging up money everywhere to try and
Get him out of Hawk from the vet.
find all the money. I don't even know how we came up with it.
I was trying to think. I can't remember how we did it.
I know, but I know David and I
You
were
worrying and
ransacking
trying
everything we could to find. And I think we were even looking in the car maybe too. I mean, it was down to literally nickels and dimes.
Yeah, we were
trying to get the silly dog out of Hawk. So,
but it was funny because when I took him back to the vet to have that cast taken off, the vet had to laugh because he was just solid in signatures. He said he'd never seen anything quite like that with all the signatures on the dog's cast and everything. But, you know, I want you to, 2 things from this story. First of all, don't take control of your dogs. I know we don't want to put them on a leash. We hate, having them locked up in a yard and stuff because we want them to be free and to do their thing, but they're like toddlers. You have to really protect them. And he was enough out of my control. I mean, he was right there by me, but I couldn't run fast enough to stop him. And it was my fault in the sense that I should not have had him out there. And you need to be more careful with your pets. You think it's not going to happen. People say, well, he listens to my commands. James had always listened to my commands. He was a very obedient dog. We trained him and he did really well, but he didn't on that day. So be very, very careful. And the other thing I want you to get out of this was, a lot of you remember how I told you, like I mentioned earlier, I stood out in that freezing cold every morning, jumping with those battery cables. And it was cold, and I learned to get those jumped really fast and quickly because it was so cold I didn't want to stand out there. So I could get that battery charger on that car and jumped real fast every morning. And I was griping and moaning and groaning about God allowing this to happen, that I had to be out in this cold jumping this battery charger. I didn't know 2 years later that because I had that down to an art, that I probably saved James's life. by being able to get that charger on. It before that point, if I hadn't had that experience, I would have had to read the instructions and I wouldn't know what to do, you know. But because I was able, because I'd done that, I was able to slap those chargers on, get it off, and get it in the car. So sometimes we moan and groan or we get frustrated because things don't go the way we think they should or the way we want them to, or we say, why is this happening to me? You never know when God's trying to prepare you for something later on or to practice, you know what I mean, and that type of thing. So, don't get quite so upset when things go wrong because there may be a reason you need to be learning that stuff.
Is that why God has allowed me to move so many times? Because some night I'm going to have to move in the
Move
middle
in the middle of the night. And you'll know what to throw in
I'll know
that
what
suitcase
to
really
do.
and how to pack it really good. So, but then it wasn't too long, I don't think, after that. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but it was just a little bit after that.
I was still 14.
Yeah, you were still 14. We were
I think that must have happened like early March, and then this happened in April. So it really wasn't that long.
No,
now that I think about it, it was
not that far apart.
Yeah, it wasn't too much longer.
But we were heading for church one morning, and we had to drive. We lived downtown, and then we had to drive north to church through downtown to get to our church. But on Sunday morning, there was not hardly any traffic. It was pretty slow. And the speed limit was like 35, and we were just moseying our way on, going to church that morning, and we got to one intersection, and the light was green, and the car in front of me went through, and I was just following behind him, going on through, and next thing we knew, just blam, boom, a lady ran the red light going 50 to 55 miles an hour.
in a 35.
In a 35. And just lambasted us horrible on the driver's... Is that called T-boning?
She T-boned us on the side.
On the side. And the car, we jumped the intersection, flipped around and spun, and then we ended up on the opposite side of the road going in the opposite direction when we finally landed and stopped. And immediately, of course, I looked over at the kids.
Well, and it hit Mom's side.
Yeah,
she hit Mom's side. And Mom didn't have her, that was before seatbelts were, and so Mom, to show the force of the impact, ended up almost in David's lap.
Well, I looked at both the kids immediately, and I said, are you guys okay? Which is what you normally do. And as I looked over there, they both looked at me, and there was just blood squirting and streaming out their faces. It was like a horror movie. I didn't even know which one to help first, which one was first. They both looked, of course, head wounds always bleed so bad anyway. And I think I grabbed a Kleenex first thing and smashed you up because you looked maybe a little bit worse, and I didn't realize she had glass embedded in her head.
She kept pushing this Kleenex on my head. I'm like, ow!
It was hurting.
And I had glass embedded in my head. She kept pushing it in further.
But what had happened was David, we don't know if he hit the dashboard or my arm or what, but he had it spewing out. He'd hit something. Well, then Tara, she had looked over at the window as the lady hit, and all the glass, there was like thousands of bullets of glass rammed into her face. Your glasses are what protected your eyes.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that saved her eyes was she had glasses on. Otherwise, all this glass just went straight. The force of it was really strong, went straight into her
I had a whole window full of glass right in my face.
And it was years and years and years. Even you said just not too long ago, she'll get pockets of like.
So it acts like I'm getting like a pimple up here, but when I touch it, it sends like a shooting pain, and then I know it's glass still coming out. And as this happened in 1986, and just like forehead from.
It was pretty bad. You see on TV. The minute it happened, there were total strangers, people everywhere, stopping their cars immediately, jumping out, running over, helping us out. They brought towels, they brought boxes of Kleenexes, they brought all kinds of stuff out of their cars. These people that didn't know us from Adam were jumping out of their cars right and left to help us. They didn't even hesitate. And, you know, nowadays you hear, well, don't stop because of this or that. You know, stop. I don't care what's, you know, people say, well, what if this, you know, I would rather be hurt doing something good for somebody than to be healthy and go on to know that I didn't stop and help somebody that needed it. These people were absolutely amazing. I couldn't have dealt with both the kids. You didn't have cell phones. Somebody had called an ambulance for us, so I didn't have to call an ambulance. And so we went, the ambulance came, Dad came. Dad got there before the ambulance, I think, just about. So he got there really fast. And we went up to the hospital. They didn't end up, I talked to the policeman at the hospital, and he said he'd stopped this woman just the week before for speeding. She had a baby in the car, and this was the second time in a week he had ticketed her. And, you know, we think the things we do doesn't affect anybody. So what if I'm going 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 over the speed limit? It happens here all the time, I know, in Colorado, but a lot of people do it. It's not going to hurt anybody. And it does hurt people. And Tar, for probably the rest of her life, will be getting glass out of her face. And I'll tell you a little bit, too. Tar came home from driver's ed one time and told me some stuff, but you have got to think about these little things that you do all the time. I'm not really breaking the law. Everybody does this. You know, it doesn't really hurt. It does hurt. It hurts people all the time, and you don't realize what you're doing.
Oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to go into debt for this truck, and then 6 months later you lose your job, and you have no money to help buy food for the kids. You know, these things matter.
And you expect other people to sacrifice and give up for you because you went into debt. But also, another thing, we're going to be talking about organizing this coming week. And you think being unorganized doesn't really make too big of a difference. You were late. Maybe she was late because she couldn't find the car keys. Maybe she couldn't find her jacket or her shoes or her purse or something because she wasn't organized. You think all these things go together. Mm-hmm. And so she was in a hurry to get going and driving fast. So the
lady who hit us.
Yeah, the lady who hit us. The littlest thing can make a difference, in our lives. But anyway, so after Tara got, I don't know what all they did to you because I wasn't with you the whole time. I think Dad was with you. Did they take all the glass out of your face? Well, is that what they were working on?
Yeah, so when I was in the hospital, they kept pushing on my head to stop the bleeding because I really splatted blood everywhere. And, what's interesting about that, though? I remember when it happened, we were on our way to church and my Bible was sitting right there. And when it happened, the only thing I thought was, look at all that blood on my Bible and Jesus died for me. And I thought, what he went through for us, this is nothing. And that seems so strange, but it was very comforting, actually, because I knew I was still alive. I knew I might be disfigured, but, I was alive, and I knew that I was going to heaven, so it didn't really matter if I was going to die. I wasn't afraid. Mm-hmm. I hurt, and I didn't want to be in pain, but I really wasn't afraid of dying. And as much blood was in that car, you would have thought it was
14-year-old. The ambulance driver even commented about how calm. What did he say? You're really calm for a 16-year-old? And she said,
I'm not 16, I'm 14. And Dad had given them their marriage date year, and not my birth date. So, but I remember that, and I really wasn't afraid. But then when we got to the hospital, they started, apparently it had just hit my forehead, I had a few on my face, but the majority of it, it really slashed my forehead to bits. I mean, my forehead was pretty raw. And so they were digging out as much glass as they could from my forehead. And surprisingly, we didn't have to stay at the hospital.
No, so then we went ahead and they patched the kids up and they sent us on home and said they had to lay flat for a week. We all three, which we were by ourselves, so there was no way I could not, I had to get up myself. I didn't think I was hurt that bad. I was more worried about the kids, and I was up running around, you know, dealing with them, and I knew my foot hurt a little bit. I didn't pay much attention to it. And I think the doctor, I didn't realize it, the doctor gave Dad some muscle relaxers for me for when we went home. He said, she doesn't realize it, but she's going to really need these because I had a whole body like whiplash because I got most of the impact, like Tara said, on my side. But what was so interesting about that was that we went and well, I need to backtrack. Tara said I didn't have my seatbelt on. From the time I was about 12 or 13, my folks had a Volkswagen. They were one of the first ones to get a Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah.
Back then, cars didn't even come with seatbelts.
Yeah.
And let alone, you know, have any laws or anything. My folks were in 2 horrendous accidents where they went through the windshield of their Volkswagen 2 different times. Grandpa.
Parents?
Uh-huh.
I didn't
Horrible.
know that.
As a matter of fact, Grandpa was even in the Boulder newspaper, a picture
Front
of my
page.
dad, front page, and showed a picture of him because it was so bad. The accident was so horrible. After the second accident, my dad went and got, he had to buy him special somehow, got seat belts, and he put them in all our cars. And then they were only the waste ones because that's all they ever made. And from that point on, he made us, we could not get in that car without putting a seatbelt on. Putting my seatbelt on was just like putting the key in the ignition. I did that every time I got in the car. So fast forward, 30 some odd years or so, 25 years, whatever, you better believe I always put my seatbelt on. I never even gave it a thought. That day, of all days, I didn't put my seatbelt on. And Tara came home from school later on, and years later, when she had driver's ed, she said, Mom, do you realize, I think it was 94, 96% or some huge percent of the people that are in that type of accident die or get maimed terribly when they're that type of accident. Well, the doctor and the police officer said, I don't know why, I don't even remember not doing it. I didn't fasten my seatbelt that morning. And they both said that if I'd had my seatbelt fastened, I would have been dead.
No.
But because I didn't have it fastened, my whole seat slid over to David, and it saved my life.
Because the way the car was, the door V'd in, and she would have been pinned between the door and the steering wheel, and it would have severed her.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And I can't even believe I didn't have my seatbelt on that day. It was amazing. And the only
And this
thing...
is just a disclaimer. We're not saying
No,
don't wear
that's
your
what I was going to
seatbelt.
say. I still wear my seatbelt to this day. You know, I still do it.
Yeah.
Because I know God intervened, I really think, that day, not allowing me to do it. And He'll do it again if I need that. He'll intervene again. So the only thing that happened, well, it's the only thing, it was kind of rough, but my foot got caught between the gas, I think, and the clutch or the brake or something down there, and it got twisted. It didn't get broken, but it got hurt pretty bad, and then my whole body was one whiplash. I went for about 3-4 months. I couldn't turn my head over my shoulder, which was hard because we had to back out of the driveway, and I couldn't turn to look at the back, to back out the driveway or anything. So I was in quite a bit of pain for a while, but I was just so grateful. But my poor parents, that car that we were driving that day, okay, I have now in my lifetime totaled three of my poor parents' cars. My parents are so sweet. They let anybody drive their car. They don't bat an eye. They say, it's just a car. It's just a car. And they say, are you guys okay? As long as you're okay, that's fine. But they still lend their car out. that car was only about 8 months old. Brand new. I mean,
Ours had died.
And Daddy had taken it home to work on it and left their car with us. And it was a brand new car. I just totaled it out on him. So, but you know, I look back on that and I'm just in awe at how God saved.
But
really
it was
saved.
hard because we had no one to help care for us. And we
that
had
day,
one
Dad came over
friend,
that day and
but-
helped us. But after that, he could. I don't know why. I can't remember why. But we didn't have it. I had
It
to
was
get up the
really
next
hard.
morning and drive. I forget how. I think we had. Dad left us a car or something. I don't know. But I had to drive us to the doctor's office. I could hardly move. And I was in so much
We
pain.
had one friend at this point, one other gal, Kathy.
Yeah.
She brought us a couple of meals. But
Other than that,
didn't she? I think she was on her way to the same church and she passed us.
she passed us. She didn't
But
realize.
she didn't know it was us because it was a different car. And she told her daughter, she said, we really need to pray for those people on the way to church. And then when she got to church, they had made an announcement that we had been in a really bad accident. But what's surprising is we got no help from the church.
The pastor even announced, he said
Yeah.
that we were going to need help,
Yeah.
so for everybody to help.
And we got nothing.
We got like 2 get well
Absolutely.
cards, and that was it.
We got no meals,
No
help
help
going to the
whatsoever.
doctor, nothing.
Yeah, so, but you know, I was just so glad and amazed that we came out of that accident as well as what we did. Did you want to take questions now?
Well, and so just so you guys kind of know, so my brother ended up with, did he break his nose?
No, it wasn't broken. We
It
can't
was
figure
just
out.
bruised
Yeah,
really bad, and he had a really bad bruised nose, and it looked like he'd been, punched in the face. Mom had really bad whiplash for a while.
Well, even now when I get a cold, what happened was afterwards, a virus set in that tore muscle or whatever, messed up muscle. And now when I get a cold, before I get the cold, it hurts in that shoulder. And so I can tell. But other than that, and I couldn't hardly walk on my ankle for several months. But
So then my forehead was kind of mauled, and I can't remember, did I have 2 or 3 surgeries?
I was trying to remember. I can't remember for sure.
I think I had 3 plastic surgeries on my forehead. And so that's why I'm so beautiful today.
Michael.
Well, over
I'm
the
kidding.
years, she would say, "Oh, I think another piece of glass is coming out of my head."
Mike's just like, okay. But so I had to have 3 plastic, and on one of those plastic surgeries, I'll never forget. He was the weirdest doctor. I did not like him. But they went to cut my head, and I said, that hurts. And they said, well, we already numbed it. You shouldn't be feeling anything. And I was like, well, I got news for you. And it hadn't got numb.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
had cut me open, and it wasn't numb. That was horrible. I almost didn't go back for the last one because it hurt so bad. But they were able to get it looking good.
It looks really good. You'd never really know
And
she had any.
now you can barely see. I mean, it's been, 30 years? It's been 30 years. Wow.
9-year-old.
And
You're gonna give away your age if you don't.
it's
Some
been 30
throwing numbers
years.
out there.
And
Laura says you're beautiful, Tara. Yes, you are.
thank you. So they were able to go in, and the first plastic surgery, they were cleaning out glass. And then the second 2, they were repairing the
Scars.
the
and stuff.
scars. And so it ended up, I looked really good. But despite all that, you may think, they got a great windfall after that accident.
Oh, we got nothing.
We got absolutely nothing from it, really.
They paid for the medical bills and they paid for the car, and that's all.
Yeah, we got no pain and suffering or anything like that. We should have gotten at least $100,000 pain and suffering for that one
Yeah, we
by
didn't.
today's terms, but we didn't get anything from the accident.
And back then you didn't sue all the time that just wasn't, you just didn't do that. You just
Yeah.
got whatever the insurance company gave you pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple people asked, hey, did you guys get insurance or something?
No,
like
we
that?
didn't get
got
anything
nothing.
from that at all.
So,
And it was hard because we couldn't cook for ourselves.
and
for
I couldn't
several
work,
weeks.
so not only did I lost out, I didn't get paid for a couple of weeks of not being able to work then. I had no income for that amount and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
So.
did we have some questions?
Okay, so now we'll do some
a lot
questions.
of what I saw was just comments, but there are, I think it's mostly comments, but definitely we're going to go through those, and then I would say if you have questions, now's a good time to post them. So we had, let's see. Actually, this isn't related to this story, but Joan said, hello from British Columbia. I made my turkey the way you did, and I sure got lots of compliments.
Oh, good. I was curious.
Actually, I have
Yeah,
something.
Dave?
So, Amy was just saying this as a statement, but apparently it's uncommon for people with CFS to need more drugs to numb. Isn't that weird?
Oh, interesting.
Oh, didn't
but
know
I didn't
that.
have CFS before then.
Yeah, that's true.
But I probably had the precursor and didn't know it. So that's very interesting.
That is
huh?
interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Thank
Maria,
you, Amy, for all the package.
Yes, thank you.
let's see.
Loved it.
At the beginning, a number of people were saying that it was kind of tough listening, but then they were with the dog story.
Oh, I know, it was horrible.
then they were.
And James
Jonathan
turned out
was-
just fine.
Yeah.
He really did.
Speaking of
Jonathan
dogs,
and Lorianne were celebrating that he survived.
Yeah, he did great.
Even Natural said, "So glad to hear more of the story." Phyllis loves your shirt.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm not sure which part this is referring to, but Penny said God's answer, wait a bit, isn't my favorite answer, but there's always a reason. I'm not sure if that was during your...
Maybe the battery. I don't know.
Sue says your mom looks like she could be your older sister. Phyllis was saying always offer a helping hand.
when is Sue coming over?
Yeah.
But that's a different Sue.
Don't be afraid to offer help. I know we hear horror stories and stuff, but we wouldn't have ever survived if it wasn't for people helping.
Yeah.
Well, and also, Sue says, wife of a police officer here, it's upsetting for the first responders to deal with victims. Her felt a hand on her shoulder and heard someone say, it's going to be okay. She felt calmness over her and the robber left. Guardian
Isn't
angels,
that
perhaps.
something?
Wow.
Yeah, that's something.
So, let's see. Heather said that they were hit on the driver's side of the car at 19 by a couple of young girls seeing how fast their car could go at 70 miles an hour. A lot of people saying they're crying or they're glad you're all alive and that you're a blessing. Jenna said when she was going through radiation, they played praise and worship music for her during the treatments. 28 treatments, she
Oh,
said.
that's a good idea. Yeah, that's nice.
She said, my song through all this has been Oceans by Hillsong. I'm not familiar with that one.
Mm-mm.
The last treatment Oceans played, and all I could do was lay there and cry and say to myself, you are indeed a good, good father. Yeah, we say that a lot. Let's see. Mary Alice says, when you feel the comforter and know it in your heart, it's so calming. Even at your age, you knew.
Yeah, it is. It's very...
Yeah. And what's funny
That's
was
the peace. That's the peace we talk about,
I
that the Bible
think-
talks about.
we maybe screamed when it happened, just as a shock. But I don't remember any of us
No, we weren't.
blubbering.
No,
or
we weren't really
crying.
hysterical.
I maybe cried a little bit just because the pain.
Was
And you
hurting.
kept pushing my head.
I just remember.
But I wasn't really. I seemed like I remember laying in the ambulance, and the ambulance driver was like, "Man,
Yeah,
you're
both the
really
kids
calm."
were both the kids were
Well-
just perfectly calm. They weren't
Yeah.
really upset or anything, and that's why the ambulance driver was so surprised.
But
Oops, sorry. I got responding here. Let's see. Michelle said, my dad put waist seat belts in our 1962 Dodge Dart station wagon. We were the first in the family to have belts in the car. He put them in because my mother hit the windshield during a hurricane in 1960, and he didn't want that to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
yeah.
So, Penny says, I always laugh at your disclaimer, Star. Not sure which thing you were disclaiming.
which disclaimer this time? We don't remember.
Not to wear your seatbelt, probably.
Oh yeah.
And Teresa says seatbelts do save lives, not in 100% of the accidents, but 98% do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
definitely
still
always better
put
to
my
wear that.
seatbelt on, yeah.
Yeah. Well, even for short distances, because I know a
Oh,
lot of people.
even if I'm going across the parking lot, I put my seatbelt
Yeah,
on.
me
Well,
too.
even like Mike and I's kids a couple of years ago, they were on the highway headed to school, and they rear-ended an SUV, and they would have been dead if they didn't
Without
have
the
seatbelts
seatbelts, yeah. We've been in enough things.
Teresa said she's a medic, and she said it's the law. I'm required to stop at accidents. She said what's
Oh,
bad.
that's interesting.
But she said what's bad is I ran on an accident scene. It was my granddaughter in that accident. Not fun, and I'm the medic on that call.
Oh.
Oh, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually had a job that I could have said yes to with State Patrol in Kansas, and then they asked, I was doing video, and they asked me, can you do crime scene stuff? And I thought, I don't think I can do that.
I just admire
Yeah.
first responders so much. They are beyond,
Yeah, I was
beyond
mentioning
anything.
someone on here that whenever I see an accident or vehicles going by, I usually pray for who they're going to, but also those who are
responding to it. I know, because you guys have a job that's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Donna says, watching in Australia, you girls are awesome. Let's see. I saw some actual... go ahead, Dave.
How was David, Uncle Dave, or Little D, after the accident? Was he injured badly?
He was.
He looked the worst.
He looked the worst.
Because I had a big bandage over mine, but he had 2 black eyes.
You love that, didn't you? Laughing at your brother's black eyes.
Wait, I have another thing.
They looked the worst.
They
but,
both
yeah.
did okay. They had to stay down for a week in bed because they were afraid they would start hemorrhaging in their heads if they got up and were too active. But they did amazing, really well. Yes, Dave?
Sue Wilson, not
Sue.
says bad accident today on Highway 67.
Oh, that's right down here.
Yeah.
I don't know. E.
That's our
East.
county line
That's
road
where I
in
drive
here.
through every day.
It's not
Yeah.
too far away. You're hoping you did too.
Yeah.
It was a little more low-key here than usual, but...
Because we had, like 3 sick or something down. Tar was really, really bad yesterday. She spent most of the day in bed.
Well, and sometimes David and his family are here and stuff, and this year it was just us and Jill. So, yeah. And Phyllis says you both have pretty faces.
Oh, Phyllis, you just got extra brownie points.
And Marianne and a couple other people were saying they hope that you start... I was listening to make sure we were still on. Did you think that...
Sick. About 18 months with chronic fatigue syndrome after the car accident. And so they think it wasn't the car accident that caused it, but they think that the stress
on our bodies was...
from everything that we had been going through kind of wore us down to the point where we just couldn't fight off anything anymore, and our genes kind of kicked in then and just wouldn't let our immune system ever be healed. So it didn't cause it, but it contributed to making things worse. Yeah.
And for the people that were asking about what CFS,
we were still going to the same church. If you've listened to our past videos, when my husband left, they didn't react real well. The people at the church didn't.
So my dad was the same as what would be called a worship pastor now. He wasn't really a pastor, he was a volunteer, but he did a good portion of the worship stuff.
Music and everything in the church.
And he was really involved. And then when he started doing the things that he was doing, the church kind of took it out on us.
They admired and respected him so much that when he kind of fell, it hurt them. And when you become hurt, you become angry. And he wasn't there at the church anymore, but we were. And so they kind of took their anger out a little bit subtly on us.
So nobody would have anything to do with us or anything like that.
it was pretty subtle, but...
Yeah. The pastors were super, but the
Yeah.
church family wasn't.
Denise said I was in a head-on collision 4 years ago, and it's so traumatic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Janice was asking, what did you do without any money for those weeks?
It was, yeah.
I really can't say. That's
Yeah.
part again of God working things out. We managed just to either sometimes our bills wouldn't be as high as what we expected them to be that month, or I just stretched the food we had. I just had to stretch it out a little bit more, than what I normally
one
did.
time we got an extra insurance check or something, maybe.
We had
that
one.
helped.
We had one.
I don't remember.
One lady. It was a couple. They didn't know us. They were new to the church, so they didn't know Dad or know any about our circumstances. We got the 2 cars, but that one couple, it was about 2 weeks later, they stopped by and they gave me $25.
Yeah.
And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I could make $25 go a long way.
And that wasn't $25 this time.
Yes.
Because older times, like 30 years ago, $25 would be like $100 now, wouldn't it?
Almost.
Mm,
Maybe
Like,
50.
wouldn't it?
yeah, maybe
Yeah,
50,
like
but
50.
yeah.
So
Sorry,
I
I
stretched it.
exaggerated.
And Denise said in that head-on accident, her seatbelt and airbag saved her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I say wear your seatbelt, because
You
this
already-
was exceptional.
Oh, sorry. You already kind of talked about it, but Karen was just asking if the trauma of the accident could have caused the fibro.
Well, it helped contribute to it just because we were already weakened from all these things that had been going on and happening to us.
It would be like
so-
having a scar on your arm from a cut or something that had healed over, and then all of a sudden something hard hit it. That spot on your skin would probably tear open first before someplace else, and because our body was kind of,
weak
weakened,
anyway.
then it
when
just
we got
aggravated.
the virus,
then
that
we got the
caused
virus. It
yeah.
did all
And
the
that's
damage.
pretty typical, isn't it, for people that have it, which is one thing they're looking
Yeah.
Yeah,
at.
that's
is that-
they've noticed a common denominator for people who have chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia is there's usually trauma or stress that causes
Physical, emotional, different types
that to
of
kick
traumas.
in. And it is an immune system problem. But what happens, they're thinking, is that your genetics kick in and cause your immune system not to respond correctly. So it's an immune disorder then. But yeah.
Sherry says, I was driving to the store one time and something told me to stop at the intersection when I had a green light and a tractor trailer came barreling through. It had lost its brakes and couldn't stop. I had a guardian angel that day.
I was
she
gonna.
said.
Isn't it amazing how many times these things happen?
Yeah. Yeah, a number of people have stories of accidents like that.
Well, 40 miles every day that they rear-ended it. She should have been dead, but they walked away from it. And so I think even when you feel God prompting you to pray for someone, you should do that also, you know.
You need to be sensitive. Don't just fluff it off.
Yeah.
You need to actually stop and do it when you sense those things.
You guys are getting lots of love here.
Thank you.
And Shannon says, glad you're all okay. 4 years ago, my grandma, 86, and I got rear-ended by a man that his brakes failed doing 70. Hit us from behind. The car was totaled. She was fine and had no injuries. She said she had Shannon said she had whiplash, but she said we were hit so hard our glasses flew off, both of us, and the whole chassis of the car was twisted. Yeah, those. Well, and here in Colorado, people will drive crazy just to,
They're
to
nuts.
save
Scary.
10 seconds on their drive.
Yeah.
Heather says my daughter lost a tire while driving. $300 later, she couldn't understand why I was still smiling. Because it had happened 3 minutes later, she'd have been doing 65 on the highway. Blessed. Yeah.
It's like Nan with her accident, you know.
Yeah, coming out here, you mean?
Coming out here before.
So, sorry. We had Kelly asked, "How was our Christmas?"
Good.
It was
That's
good,
pretty
yeah.
It was a lot more mellow than, and a lot more low key than usual.
It was. It was. Well, like I said, there was like 3 of them down, not feeling good. You know, BJ was sick all day. Tara slept most of yesterday. And the Christmas Eve was really nice too. That's when we opened our gifts and everything. But
Christmas Eve, I
Dave
couldn't go caroling.
and Dave was sick, and
Neither
And-
times I could go caroling. So
Yeah, we went caroling a number of times, but David was sick on Christmas Eve. Patricia said in a previous show you spoke about having an extended food supply for emergencies. What do you recommend as the best food to stock up on and what lasts the longest? And she says I always worry about expiration dates.
For me, I have beans and rice to start with. I would say start with beans and rice. Because beans and rice, both white rice, have pretty much an indefinite lifespan. I mean, pretty much beans
Yeah.
and rice you can keep for 20, 25 years and it's fine.
You said the dry ones, right?
Yeah, dried beans and rice. And then I also have a water filter so that I can filter water to cook the beans if I need to. So I would start with that. And then we have canned goods. So I just have, like beans and peaches and things like that.
Buy
and
things that you normally eat, because that way you can replenish
Yeah.
and use it up, and you won't have to worry about the dates expiring. But those expiration dates,
For canned goods, yeah.
people have to understand, won't make you sick unless the can is bulged and dented. If a can is all okay, even though it's way past their expiration
They'll go
date.
10 or 15.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
least 10 years past the expiration date. And
That's the freshness date.
I was going to say, all what it does is the taste isn't quite as fresh, but it will not hurt you, and you can eat that if you have to.
Yeah. So I have a bunch of canned goods. And then I also have some things in there, like I've saved old phone books for toilet paper if we need it, because it stacks neater than rolls and rolls of toilet paper. And so I have some things like that. I have plastic bags stacked so that if we need to have a disposable toilet, I have plastic bags for that. And then, I just have, don't forget things like oil as you're going, but just start. Everyone who says, well, I don't know where to start, just buy an extra 3 to 10 pieces of canned goods, however much you can afford. If it's just one can,
Yeah,
just buy one can.
If you buy like onion salt, maybe get 2. Salt, I keep a lot of salt.
Yeah, salt's a good
Salt
one
will
for
not
that.
expire. And with salt, you could always use it as trading, with somebody
And
else.
white sugar.
And white sugar. Both of those. And Nan has a lot of, what do I store a lot of? Candy and chocolate.
Oh yeah, so you can be all hyped.
Yeah, for the grandkids. But
But people tell me all the time, I don't have money to stock up. That's a bunch of baloney. I honestly do not know one person that when they go to the grocery store, they can't just buy one
or 2
extra
extra
can
cans.
of canned goods. And
Another-
so just start there.
Another thing I've started doing is every summer our Kroger grocery store has Tang and powdered lemonade. They have it on sale for $1. It's normally $3 something. I have it on sale for $1. And I save a lot of that because it's powdered, which will keep almost forever. And that way you can get your vitamin C's. It has a lot of vitamin C in that. And so I keep that for vitamin C. And if you can keep vitamins, a little bit extra stockpile on multivitamins.
Vitamin D is the best one to have because you'll be lacking vitamin D most likely. And
Dry milk is
B
good to have
vitamins
too.
are good to have too on hand. So
We need to do a whole thing on that
Yeah.
probably.
And Teresa was saying that her daughter and some other teenagers were in an accident. She said they charged her the ambulance bill, and she was the medic on that call. She said, shame for my company.
Oh my, yeah.
But then she also said all the teens in my daughter's accident were calm but one, and the one with no injuries was screaming and yelling.
Yeah, that's the way it
That's pretty
happens a
typical,
lot.
right?
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing. Stay calm when these things happen because if I wouldn't have stayed calm, I probably would have passed out from blood loss. But because I wasn't screaming like crazy, I wasn't getting my blood pumping, and I was staying calm. So, yeah, you really need to stay calm, which is hard, but I don't know.
Just do it. Wait, what?
Let's see. Let's see what else we have here. Teresa says, Tara, were any IVs started, and did they get them? Most shock victims, veins collapse.
I don't think they did IVs on
I don't
you. I'm
think they
pretty
did.
sure they
I don't think
didn't.
they did it as much back then, did they?
No, I don't think they did it back then.
No,
yeah.
because you have so much trouble, you and David both, and I don't think they started IVs on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Philosophy Phoenix says, that's such a shame about your church not bringing you all any meals. What do you think are the best meals to take to families when they are unable to cook?
something they don't have to cook.
Yeah, make sure you do it in containers they can throw away, and keep it very simple, because I don't do a lot of casserole type things. I do like ham or chicken without a lot of sauces, because that way young children don't like spicy food, so that can be fed to young children. There's a lot of picky eaters where if you just have simple ham, simple chicken, simple roast.
Fried apples, fried carrots.
Or even if you just take fresh fruit and that, or cut up fresh, what was I going to say? Green beans. Just simple. Just keep it simple with a lot of sauces.
A loaf of French bread that I'll cut but have already buttered, and I will already have it in the foil so that if they want to warm it in the oven, they can. Otherwise, they can take it out, just nuke it in the microwave. But when I take meals, David, can you go bring me those pans up there?
These?
Yeah. I buy these pans here. And what I do is,
It's in the camera.
so, I don't know how that got in there, but, so I buy these, maybe not quite so big. I got these at the thrift store, but normally I'll get them about 3/4 of this. And what I do is I make little packets of foil. So I will put my roast here with foil covered. I'll put my potatoes here with foil covered. I'll put my fried apples here, and I'll put my carrots or green beans here and cover it. Then they can slide this whole thing in the oven and heat it up at 350 if they can't eat it right away. Or they can take it out and eat it in the microwave, but then it's all disposable. Don't take anything that they have to wash.
And another thing, try to think about breakfast things. Send like a coffee cake or cinnamon
Bag of
rolls or
donuts,
bagels or something like that. Because a lot of people forget about breakfast, or even simple
Snacks.
lunch items like lunch meat with a loaf of bread maybe,
Like this was
and
snarky
simple
yesterday.
things like that.
And even like granola bars or something like that.
Yeah, a few snack foods.
Yeah, or even just, a bag or two of, just
The little
donuts,
donuts,
that kind of thing. So,
A number of people were asking what was the topic today, because they either joined in part of the way or they're just.
We were doing the continuation of my story,
yep.
number
So
14.
we did 13 previous episodes of Jill's story. And this was the 14th one. Teresa she's chimed in a few times saying she was a medic, and they were talking about people not pulling over for ambulances and emergency vehicles, and she said, LOL, I almost ran over a car with a fire truck because they would not move. And she said I would have done it too. Yeah, that's just crazy when people don't. I think it's the law everywhere in the
I
United
always
States.
pull over.
And I've gone to extreme measures to get out of the way.
Yeah, you
So-
need to pull over.
So, Amy T says an extreme case of glandular fever set off her autoimmune illness.
Yeah, usually.
See,
it's
once
something
again,
like
that's a
that,
stress on the body, the physical stress.
And by the way, thank you for your lovely gift. We quite enjoyed it.
Oh, Mom, can
That
you
was
get the last
fun.
donut? I'm hungry.
Jamie says you guys have been through so much, and I think all your life experiences have made you incredible people. Yes.
Thank you. That's
And Dolphin says even in the church there's an in crowd, and unfortunately that's
Yeah,
often the case.
unfortunately.
But
Yeah.
we don't hold that against God.
No,
though.
you don't judge God in the church by the people, that's for sure.
Yeah. Let's see.
Dave, you do such a great job helping. You do a great job, Dave.
Well, I'm bored, so I'm
Faith Frutos M9 says your life is a real ministry. That's how God works. Yes,
I'm
definitely.
just Rubik's cubing like a pro.
Just looking through to see. Yeah, Teresa says you can be killed in an accident at speeds low as 25 miles an hour. Yeah. I think people don't realize just how much weight is in a car.
Yeah.
Dolphin Mintz, let's see. Oops. He's talking to somebody else there. Oops. Carol is asking us to make a video on stockpiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Add that to the list.
Add to our list of videos.
Dolphin Man says McDonald's hamburgers last 20 years.
That's true.
Not around here.
Never what around here.
And when you're stockpiling, this is not the time to be worrying about what you're putting in your body. This is survival. So that's why I have no problem stockpiling white rice and beans, because they're a complete protein when you put them together, but they're really cheap and easy to get. So.
Yes. Oh, and Dolphin Man was saying in your emergency stash to be sure to put health care
Yeah, I
goods.
have a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of emergencies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Teresa says sugar will mold if not stored right.
Oh, really?
It's like jellies. Certain kinds of jellies.
What
and
I do is
stuff.
I buy those tins popcorn comes in. I use those, and I use the cat litter. Clean out the big plastic cat litter and store sugar and everything in those big metal tins. Metal stores the best because it's not porous like plastic. And so I like the metal tins best.
And Teresa was asking, when was the accident you were talking about, the car accident?
1986.
Okay. Oops. Amy, this is really good. Amy T says, I'm learning that staying calm can get you through almost anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
Yeah.
That's why the Bible says over and over, do not fear, and it talks about telling you to have peace and to be calm, because God knows how important that is for us to survive, using that,
Yeah.
having that.
Do you have anything in your cookbook about stocking up from Dolphin Man?
What?
So do you have anything in your cookbook about stocking up?
I don't.
Not about stocking up, but we do have, where is it at? Just a second. I do have a what to have in your pantry here. On page 19, we have a pantry shopping list that is page 19 to page 21. And this is what I would go off of to try and just get started, to get yourself started. So,
Oops. Donna and Valerie both say put coffee in the freezer. Donna says put it in an airtight container and put it in the freezer.
oh yeah.
Rocio is asking, which water filter do you have?
What is
So I just have, I can't remember the name. I just have a small one, but I'm getting ready to get a bigger one.
You like fridge water?
Like a Berkey is what they're called, but I'm not gonna get that one. I'm gonna make my own homemade. You can make, they're like $300 for a Berkey, but you can make your own homemade for like $35. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna get the supplies for that. And one day I'll do a video on it. But we have so many people living with us now that if we ever need water, like when we were flooded and we thought we were gonna lose our water, I want to have that on hand, so that, because water is almost more important than food. And I have little mini personal water filters, and then I have bottled water that I've taken pop containers and cat litter containers that I've cleaned out and put water in there. And I switch that out every 6 months. The kids all line up and we go water my plants with them, and we go refill them and haul them back down. The kids just love that. But I have at least enough water for 3 days for us.
And if you think emergency is going to happen, like you knew with the flooding,
Yeah.
they were warned that there could be flooding. Fill up your bathtub. You could even clean out the bathtub if you need to, and with Clorox or whatever. Fill up your bathtub. Fill up as many containers, and get a little prepared. And keep bottled water on hand. Why people go a day before the hurricane's coming to get bottled water, I don't know. Keep it on hand, There was just a thing, I forget where it was, where they had problems with their water supply, and they didn't have water. These people, they were trying to ship it into them because nobody had stockpiled water. So keep it on hand.
Wow. Andrea said, I had a car wreck, but 2 weeks later had a silent heart attack. If it wasn't for the car wreck, I would never have gone to check on my arm pain.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. They were talking about what things to stockpile. Phyllis was saying beans, rice, and ramen noodles and canned goods. And Jonathan says, I say bah humbug to expiration dates.
Yeah, we don't listen to them too much. But part of that is if you buy canned goods that you use on a daily basis, regular foods, you wouldn't have as much problem with that.
Well, and I didn't catch if you talked about it or not, but there's certain phrasing like best by and used by and
Sell by
sell
or
by,
use
and
by.
those. So most of those are freshness dates. There are some things like refrigerated eggs that, well, I don't know. There's some things that I forgot what they are, but
Like meat,
that
you
have
to, but canned goods are
hard
usually.
dates. But yeah,
Yes, Dave?
So, doesn't Amy live in New York City?
Amy
Amy
T.
Yeah.
She's in Australia.
Oh,
She's lives-
I thought
I
she
think-
lived because she gave you guys the New York.
No,
no, the New
Australia.
York cheesecake
Australia.
was from somebody else.
No, that was from someone else. No, totally. But from her, hold on, wrong person. From her, she said that the food there is really expensive.
Yeah.
Oh,
In
yeah.
Australia or New York?
Yeah.
That's why, buy one item with each grocery shopping trip, and that type of thing. And you'll be surprised how fast it adds up.
Yeah, and Charlene says I stockpile groceries that are on sale and use the oldest first. And Patricia says, what about pastas? She said, thank you, very good
Yeah.
advice, especially chocolate. Did you talk
Yeah.
about chocolate?
Mom did. But
Oh, okay.
I have a lot of spaghetti just because it's easy, because it stacks easier and it's easy to store. But, one thing on the stockpiling is I have enough food just in my pantry to probably get us through at least a month.
Yeah,
in my freezer, I probably have 2 to 3 months just in my freezer in my normal pantry. And I am shocked when I hear people, they don't even have enough food for 3 days in their house.
Yeah. We had somebody
So-
ask us, how did I do that 2 weeks? I didn't have to buy food because you'd be surprised how long you can live
Yeah.
off of what you just have in your pantry. Try it sometimes. Just experiment and see, can I go a week without going to the grocery store? Not only you'll save a week's worth of groceries, but you'd be amazed at how long you can go with what's in the pantry.
And if you get desperate enough, you'll go ahead and eat those beets you've been shuffling back into the bag all this time.
Yeah, really. Yes,
I
Dave.
forgot the person who said the first thing. But the person who said the first thing, they said frozen coffee. Dolphin Man said instant coffee
Yeah.
and pet food. And a lot of other people are agreeing with the coffee.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Tanya says that my family laughs at me until they run out and the stores are closed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it was funny because when the flood was here, the people up in Estes Park were cut off from the rest of Colorado, and their Safeway was out of stuff in like an hour. Except there was one little bottle of something on the shelf, and people were posting that on social media saying, "What's wrong with this?" Charlene says, "I just use these pans, the ones you were talking about, to bring food for an elderly aunt today."
Yep.
And go ahead.
Oh, well, another thing on the pans, when you go to garage sales in the summer and you find some place where they have really inexpensive bowls or plates or something like that, get them and tell the people, you can throw this away. So,
Yeah. And I do, when I take meals, I also take paper
plates.
plates and napkins at least. But I would throw in silverware and disposable cups too.
I like to throw in disposable bowls because they need cereal. If they're only eating cereal in the morning or soup, the disposable bowls work good.
Yeah. Phyllis says our church does meals for seniors that cannot get out, and they also feed the homeless.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And Patricia says I usually bring people lunch meat, rolls, and salads.
Yeah, that's good.
And let's see, did Jack show up? Because a number of people were saying hi to Jack.
Oh
Yeah.
he showed up for like 5 seconds.
He
Where
said,
am I not
"Mom, you
even paying
could
attention?"
filter water with the sock."
With the sock.
Yes, you could.
Let's use Dave's sock to
You can
filter that
actually
water.
filter water with, if you get one of those big like 2-liter bottles, plus some fresh gravel from outside, plus a couple of fresh little rocks, and then you put tissues on each side, and that's a big filter.
I also have
And it works really
charcoal, so that if
Charcoal.
we need to cook outside, I have charcoal.
good. Or fire.
Donna asks, why do you stockpile? We don't tend to do that in the UK.
Well, here, maybe not in the UK, but here in the US, we have a lot of natural disasters happen, like hurricanes and
Earthquakes.
tornadoes and earthquakes,
Floods.
Wildfire.
wildfires. We
Yeah.
have a lot of things like that happen a lot
Where
here.
you can get cut off from your grocery supply, for a while. Even ice storms. We were 2 weeks in an ice storm. Couldn't
Well,
get
yes,
out.
and there's actually, because things are a lot further apart from each other here than
Yeah,
so
see,
much of the
I
rest
think
of the world.
in the UK you can walk a block and you're at a little store.
Yeah.
We have to drive a ways to reach our stores usually.
For
you know.
Mike and I to go to the grocery store, it's at least 10 miles away. to the closest one.
To try to do that in
But,
an ice storm or something.
You know, just to put in perspective, like in the last 10 years, we have been through earthquakes just between Kansas and Colorado. We've had earthquakes. We've had a major flood where we were literally cut off.
We've had 2 major floods where we were cut off. We had the one in Idaho, too.
Cut off from civilization and we couldn't get out. We've had tornadoes and we've had ice storms. Is that it? And blizzards. And a really, really bad... Blizzard. Colorado had a really bad blizzard. Well, it's been almost 10 years now ago. But they had a really bad blizzard where people were cut off. So... natural disasters here in the U.S. happen quite frequently.
Yeah.
Well, in that one ice storm, we had no power for 3 weeks in January.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, in the northern hemisphere, like here, it's really bitterly cold in January with no heat.
Or the power could just all short out and then you don't have any stuff.
Vernon says, you should do a barbecue show. I know it's probably a little cold right now. That would be nice. Actually, it's kind of a little bit.
Oh, we'd love Tar to barbecue.
Well, and another thing for stockpiling.
Tar doesn't barbecue.
Another thing for stockpiling is you never know when you're going to lose your job, and you're not going to be able, or someone's going to, like if Mike falls off the roof or something and ends up in the hospital for months.
Or
at a
like
time,
what we had with our accident. I couldn't work for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I really couldn't go easily to the grocery store for a couple of weeks because I was hurt so bad. So I had plenty of food I didn't have to worry about, you know. And things like that.
The thing is we've had all these things happen, so we're kind of paranoid. I mean, you can call it that, but it's all happened to us.
It's happened, so we learn to be prepared now for all of it.
Yeah, different Tanya says, for any type of emergency like job loss, financial collapse, or natural disaster where you can't get to a store.
Yeah.
It's funny because people think of like super huge nationwide disasters, but ours have just been many of them have been kind of regional weather disasters and things, but any kind of thing. Chrissy said I had to stay calm in 2011 when Joplin, Missouri had the EF5 tornado that I was in. It was hard, but you have a 1-year-old.
One.
Yeah.
So and Lori Ann said they had a major ice storm. Even the stores and gas stations were closed down. No electricity for 9 days. Yeah, the flood that we had here up in Estes Park, we were trying to call some people up there, and there were no telephones up there, and the ground phones were gone, but also all the cell phone towers were inoperable, and so there was no way to communicate with people up there at the time. So Tanya says, just baked a cake that expired 2.5 years ago, and it tasted great.
I know. It's...
Marianne, I love watching your live videos. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Phyllis says we survived the earthquake in the 90s and we had neighbors that wanted to feed us.
Oh, speaking of neighbors, I heard the number one survival thing is to know your neighbors. When you're in, get to know your neighbors because they're going to be the ones digging you out of the tornado pile. Yeah. They'll be the ones that help you. So try to get to know your neighbors. Yeah, really.
And Carol says, remember to rotate your canned goods. Put the new ones in the back and pull the old ones up front. You don't have to worry about
that. That really is the hardest part about stockpiling
oils.
is storing it, where you can use the newest first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking over here just
especially your oils. So like I have some shortening and some canola oil and those I try to keep rotating because your oils will go rancid.
Oils go rancid. Mm-hmm.
But and then also one thing I also have is powdered cheese, powdered butter, and powdered eggs.
Because those will be the hardest things.
Yeah, you can get a big can of them on Amazon, but I have at least one of each of those because, it helps spice up the beans when you've eaten the same beans for...
Well, speaking of spices, it's good to have some extra spices because if you're eating just rice and beans, it'll help, to add the flavor to the food.
And did you guys mention a can opener?
Oh yeah, make sure you have a can opener.
Not an electric can opener.
A hand can.
One of the biggest things that people forget when canned goods in emergency places is something to open them with.
Yeah.
So, not an electric can opener, you're right. Lucy wants to know, what do you think about Spam for food storage?
I say it's great.
Yep.
Now, it won't last quite as long as other canned goods like vegetables and peaches. It would probably last 5 or 10 years, but, I think it's great.
Wouldn't popcorn be a good stock food, kind of?
No, because you wouldn't be able to cook it.
Well, I mean, if you had like a way to cook it.
Yeah. And a Dutch oven. I have an old Dutch oven, iron stove Dutch oven, or an iron, wait a minute, what am I trying to say? Cast iron Dutch oven that I keep on hand. And even though I only use it, I use it up once or twice a month in the winter to bake like a roast in the oven, but I actually keep it in a cast iron skillet because those will be invaluable if you have to cook outside on an open fire. So
Yeah.
I have a metal coffee pot that you can use on a campfire because you not just for coffee, but you can boil water in it. You can make soup in a coffee pot, and that type of thing.
Yeah, interesting. Charlene says I go to the grocery store very little during the winter because of my immune disease, so that's why I need a stockpile.
Yeah.
Didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phyllis was saying always help your neighbors. Yeah, we were trying to get friendly with all the neighbors when we moved in. Oh, Donna says wet wipes.
Yeah.
Did you mention that already?
Yeah, I do have that.
And Barbara wants to know if we're getting snow. I don't see any at the moment. We had some yesterday on Christmas Day. So let's see. Louise, do you ever have mildew from floods?
The floods did not hit our house.
You were just cut
Because
off.
our town is kind of on a hill, and we go down to everything. And so thankfully, when the floods hit, and as a matter of fact, we sat and figured after the floods, we think we're the highest house in the town, too. I think our house is the highest one, or it's one of the highest ones, if it's not, because we got to thinking, we looked down on all of our neighbors and everything. We looked down on everyone. So thankfully our town did not get hit by the floods, but...
Jessica says, I'm a substance abuse counselor and a lot of my patients have money problems as they try to put their lives back together. So I've been telling them to watch the Penny Pinching Mama series on YouTube.
Oh, that's sweet.
That is awesome. And they loved it. Can't wait to tell them a new episode is out.
Yes.
Jack wanted to say something. So what, Jack?
So, I personally think that our house is the highest because in our backyard, we literally have a hill that goes that's like this steep.
Yep, our backyard is a hill. So,
Arian SCP, I think, says, can you give me a shout out? They want a shout out.
Who says that?
Arian?
Arian?
SCP, I think. I have no idea.
Well, hello.
Hi,
Arian.
Where is
We
it?
have no idea.
IPI. It's hard to say. At the bottom of YouTube.
How do you spell it, Dave?
Right
Oh,
there.
there.
Oh, Arian. Hi, Arian.
Arian.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Hi.
Let's see. Oops, where were we? Let's see. You already asked that. Sorry. Somebody.
Getting seasick, Michael.
I know. I saw something here and I forgot where it was. Oh, A. Lynn says, please do a storage video.
For the food, is that what?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
Anna says, my mom gave me the Betty Crocker cookbook when I got married, but the ingredients were so expensive I never used it. I tell everyone dining on a dime is the Betty Crocker cookbook of frugal cooking.
So,
Yeah.
Dolphin Man, you can just order it, and if you want to send it to other people, I think that's who it was. Mike was scrolling through, I couldn't check. But if it was you,
Yeah, it was.
if you want to order a book and send it to someone else, you can change the billing address from the shipping address. And so I will ship it to whoever you want.
The billing address would be his, and then the shipping would be who he wants.
And you can also just send me an email on our contact form and say, hey, I'm shipping this to someone else, and I'll
Well, and
check
when
it.
we were doing our big sale in the fall, or just before Christmas, there was the ebook sale we were doing as the benefit, and somebody ordered ebooks for other people and sent us email address of where to send those. So that was nice too. Yeah, did you mention alcohol? Carol says keep alcohol on hand for.
I have. Well, this
Peroxide.
wasn't supposed to be a whole story on food, but yeah, we do.
You have to do
keep all those
peroxide,
things,
alcohol,
Yeah.
bandages.
Did you want to kind of wrap it up?
Well, yeah. Is there anything else that's?
Were we going to ask him if they?
So, well, Mike's-
somebody asked if we had visited with Sue yet.
No, we haven't seen Sue yet. We can't
She
wait
said-
to get together. We need to make a day with her.
She was going to PM me,
Good.
and she said probably midweek this week.
Yay! We'd love to see you, Sue.
She's off right now.
So we also want you guys to tell us And if you're watching this later, either email me on our contact form at livingonadime.com or leave it in the comments on our YouTube video. But we're doing an organizing video. Wednesday's going to be motivation to get organized. Friday's going to be how to get organized. But we want to know what topics you guys want, because we'll shoot some things while Mom's here for later also.
For the live shows or
Recorded things. Just what do you want to learn? Like some people want to learn how to hem pants, or how to make the aprons, or just how to wash dishes, anything. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything.
Well, and so apparently they want to storage food.
Or
to
storage,
have.
whatever. Give us what specific things that you want.
Specific topics that you want us to talk about.
Or to show you how to do.
Yeah.
Either talk about or show you how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you mention fire? T. Lynn was talking about having fire in your emergency, like a lighter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, matches
Matches
and
and
lighters.
lighters, yeah.
Mhm.
Any tips on staying warm during a natural disaster
Plants.
without electricity? From Sarah.
A lot of blankets. So we also have those little silver blankets they're about this big. And they're silver. They're on Amazon. They're emergency shelter blankets or emergency blankets. And you can wrap those around you and keep really warm in those. But keep a lot of blankets on hand. I make sure that we have at least 5 to 6 blankets for each person, because we live in Colorado and we don't have an alternate heat source other than our central air that we have. We don't have a wood stove or anything. So
bodies could also be a good source of
yes,
heat.
Bodies.
People in your
yeah.
That sounds really not good.
But everyone would stay in one room. That would keep the
Close
heat
off
together.
the room.
Mhm.
Another thing, in my basement, I have a room in my basement where my hot water heater is and my furnace. And that room, even though I lose electricity, that room stays really, really warm. So if I close that off, just those pilot lights from the hot water heater in the furnace can keep the room warm. So it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
Candy Plumber says don't forget cooking for one. I think she's talking about doing that.
Oh, yeah.
For tips, yeah.
I'm kind of moving quickly through these, but Barbara did ask, what can you use for an alternative heating source if the power goes out? We don't have wood stove or propane heater. What else could we do?
They have these little camp wood stoves, and I'm thinking about getting one of those for an emergency. And it's like $200 or so. And if it was a real emergency, we could set that up in the house with the pipe going out a window and do that. But really, there's not very good.
There isn't.
There's not very good.
Now, BJ says, I think if you get solar panels, a couple of solar panels, and hook them up to a little heater, you could do that
Yeah.
too. But
A
that can
space
get kind of,
heater. Like you could do space heater with solar panel set up.
yeah.
Yeah.
With BJ's car battery solar thing.
Yes, Barbara, we're thinking about selling our house. And Mom, if we find a place with a mother-in-law house, not apartment, house,
On the other end of the 20 acres. Oh,
on the other end of the 20
she's my
acres.
mother-in-law, so I have to say
And
that.
then farther.
I don't know what we're doing. Yes, we would like to move, and we're preparing to move, but we haven't found a house, and we haven't sold our house yet. But I don't know. We're thinking maybe April or May.
Dad, that's just
Oh
like,
no, poor April. April says, I wrote out my Christmas list complete with website and detailed instructions for my hubby. I was looking forward to getting my Living on a Dime cookbook. Turns out he forgot to order it. I feel a little bit let down by the love of my life.
April, tell him to order it, because I'm throwing in the free quick and easy menu. So tell him to order it soon.
Yeah. Oh, Rhonda says, how to organize your kitchen would be good. Barbara says, everything you mentioned. Donna, how to store fresh food and or crops.
April, tell him it's an early Valentine's present.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what Dad was talking about with Nan. It's like the bumper sticker I was gonna get him that said, "In case of rapture, my car will swerve as my mother-in-law takes the wheel."
Takes over the wheel.
Carol suggested that storage would be good for Wednesday because it's the Homestead Network. Oh, somebody else wanted to know what that Homestead thing was we were talking about.
So the homesteadnetwork.com is a group of homesteaders. We're not really homesteaders. We've homesteaded before, but we're not true homesteaders. But we do money saving and homesteading type things in that area. So It's a bunch of homesteaders who've gotten together to form thehomesteadnetwork.com, and you can go there and click on show times. And David, and it has a link of all the people on there. Yes, your mother will give you the death stare on live Facebook.
YouTube.
And you can go there and there's a whole bunch of homesteader people on there that have YouTube channels. And so we have a whole bunch of people on there that just do all kinds of things, from everything from skinning to cows to saving money to canning.
Storing food.
Yeah. So, yeah, Jeff?
It's like 4 minutes.
Yes, I know.
Sorry.
30 minutes.
Brooke said, I bought the thermometer you use for your soap making and I love it. Better than what I had before.
Yay! It's a great thermometer, isn't it?
There are some more questions or comments about storing stuff and stuff like that. Do we want to keep answering those, or is it, because I know we're over time, like half an hour?
Well, is there anything important, or is it just like comments?
Somebody asked something that I thought... Louise wants to know, what about animals? Do you have an emergency plan for them?
So for our animals, I keep the cat boxes downstairs in our emergency area, and then I keep an extra dog leash there. Also, if
Make
you
sure you
don't-
have their cages in case you have to leave
Yeah.
quickly. Know
So-
where their cages are in hand. Have them.
So I have their cat cages next to, we have a bug out bag so that if we have to evacuate, I have, everything we need to last at least 3 to 4 days in a backpack for each of us. And I have that and all the cat boxes, cages, and the extra dog leash and everything there so that if we have to get out fast, it's all right there and we can do that.
So April says, I'll just stick with it's a late Christmas present and milk the guilt trip for all it's worth.
I love that one. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
definitely.
the way to go. You know what
think
you're
you
doing
need a
there,
big old
April.
box of chocolates with that one.
Oh, now Valerie says a tea light candle in a terracotta pot turned upside down will space for heat to get out. Will help heat a small room.
Another thing, like in the
With
car,
the
I
space
keep a
heater.
can, metal coffee can that you can put a candle inside, and like if you're in the car, it'll do quite a bit of heat.
And Susan says, I have a kerosene heater with 3 days worth of kerosene. I wasn't sure, do kerosene heaters need to be vented outside?
I don't think so,
I can't
because
remember, 'cause I know
Grandma
some
had
things-
one. I'm not sure.
I think, well, I know some people have tried to use like charcoal grills, which are not good inside.
Yeah,
don't
no,
use a charcoal grill.
That'll,
yeah.
that'll kill you, yeah.
But just make sure you have enough blankets. Most people will be able to survive, even if it gets down to 40 or 50 in your house.
Keep the door shut
yeah.
in one room. If you have to cover the windows up with a blanket or
Close the
plastic,
blinds or
and keep.
Denise says death stare, aka stink eye. Michelle wants to know if we're looking to stay in Colorado. Yes.
So says he.
It's a good thing I'm sitting in the middle.
We're
tonight.
actually only thinking
No,
about
we're-
moving
yeah,
a short distance.
Just in Colorado.
Where we'll still be at our same church
And we'll
and
still
our
have
same
friends here.
schools and
Yeah,
stuff
we
like
just
that.
want to get out of the suburbs. There's just too many people here and dogs.
Yeah, so anyway.
All right, so we're going to be back on Wednesday. We're going to talk about getting motivated, how to motivate yourself for organizing.
Carol says mother-in-law shed. I like you, Carol. Just kidding.
I'm thinking a mother-in-law barn.
Yeah.
My children love me.
Will you be warm? I'll throw some extra hay in there. So anyway. All right.
All right, Wednesday, motivation to get organized. Please buy our book, Dining on a Dime Cookbook, or Mom's ebook,
Are you
Penny
begging?
Pinching Mama,
you
livingonadime.com, and we'll see you Wednesday. Have a good
Bye.
night.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. and YouTube is going away.
It's going away.
Sadly.
Okay, I have no idea how we went from a dead dog in a car accident